Thank you for joining. Today I want to talk about the Zen mind, beginner's mind. 2 weeks ago, I finished the prologue, and my aim was to talk about one chapter each time. But I'm not quite sure if I will finish the first chapter today because it's about the posture, and there's lots of different important well, details about the posture that I want to focus on. So if I can't finish today, I will continue in the autumn. And maybe I can share the text which I'm reading with you. Posture. Okay, this is where we start today. Posture. These forms are not the means of obtaining the right state of mind. To take this posture is itself to have the right state of mind. There is no need to obtain some special state of mind. That's a quote that appears later in the middle of this chapter. Let me read a couple of sentences before I comment on this. Now I would like to talk about our Zazen posture. When you sit in the full lotus posture, your left foot is on your right thigh and your right foot is on your left thigh. I think Suzuki Roshi gave these talks at the end of the 60s or maybe around the year 1970, and I'm not quite sure how many of the students could actually sit in this posture at the time. I doubt that most of the American students could actually sit in this posture for a long time. So I wonder why he only mentions full lotus posture and not only half lotus posture, Burmese posture, sitting on a chair. Maybe because it was understood that, of course, most people cannot sit in full lotus for a long time. Otherwise, even Dogen Zenji says you can sit in half lotus. And I hope that you know that if you can't sit in half lotus, it's okay to just sit with the feet on the floor, and you can sit on a bench, you can sit on a chair, if that's the easiest or the best way for you to sit. Of course, that doesn't mean to say that it doesn't make a difference. It does make a difference. And I think I said that already last time. If you want to know the difference, try it out by yourself. But of course, there is no rule that says you must sit in full lotus. But for some reason, Suzuki Roshi here mentions only full lotus. When we cross our legs like this, even though we have a right leg and a left leg, they have become one. The position expresses the oneness of duality, not two and not one. This is the most important teaching, not two and not one. Our body and mind are not two and not one. I don't want to criticize Suzuki Roshi too much here because, well, that's something that happens to all of us, especially in the spiritual business, that you end up saying things because you know they sound cool, people appreciate them because that's maybe what they wanted to hear. But in this case, and in many other cases, I'm not quite sure if what Suzuki Roshi here says, I mean, it's not wrong, but at least I wouldn't have connected it to the full lotus posture, because just because you fold the feet, it doesn't make them one. Of course, they touch each other, but it's not that the left foot and the right foot become one. And even if you don't sit in full lotus, your two legs are always connected through the bones, through the hip bones. So if you stand, if you lie down, if you walk, you have two legs, but they're always connected as one body. So I don't think there's a special, how do you say, magic with this posture that makes the right foot and the left foot become one. Of course, what Suzuki Roshi says here about body and mind being not two, not one, or being two, but also one at the same time, is not wrong. And you could say the same thing about the absolute truth, the relative truth that I talked about a lot when it was about the precious mirror samadhi. Um, from the point of the absolute truth, there's only the here and now. There is no other, there's no distinction. But from the point of relative truth, there's today, there's yesterday, there's tomorrow, there's you and each single one. There's me and each single one of you, and we're all different. And these two truths contradict each other. But they are the two sides of the one reality that we live. So also with the absolute truth and relative, you could say they are two, but they are one. So that's true. But it's not something that happens miraculously when you cross your feet. So it really doesn't have much to do with the lotus posture, I would say. But let's continue a little bit. Our body and mind are not two and not one. If you think of your body and mind are two, that is wrong. If you think that they are one, that is also wrong. Our body and mind are both two and one. We usually think that if something is not one, it is more than one. If it is not singular, it is plural. But in actual experience, our life is not only plural, but also singular. Each one of us is both dependent and independent. Making the connection to relative and absolute, I would say, in the relative world, we're all depending on each other. We're all entangled. And absolute truth, there is only this one. There is no other. So from the point of absolute truth, we're all independent. After some years, we will die. But you could also say it's the opposite. So you could say from the point of relative, we are all individuals. And we all have to take responsibility for all our own lives. While from the point of absolute truth, everything is connected by the law of interdependent, how do you say, arising. That would be the other way to see it. So from that perspective, it's exactly the other way around. So from that perspective, relative truth would mean being independent, and absolute truth would mean depending on each other. But be that as it may, let me continue a little bit. After some years, we will die. Also here, it's a little bit funny that he says we die, because actually we don't die. I die or you die. But well, each single one of us will eventually die. If we just think that it is the end of our life, this will be the wrong understanding. But on the other hand, if we think that we do not die, this is also wrong. We die and we do not die. This is the right understanding. Some people may say that our mind or soul exists forever, and it is only our physical body which dies. But this is not exactly right, because both mind and body have their ends. But at the same time, it is also true that they exist eternally. And even though we say mind and body, they are actually two sides of one coin. This is the right understanding. So when we take this posture, it symbolizes this truth. So now he finally returns to the posture. And I'm not quite sure if it's such a lucky idea that he tried to connect this kind of bare bones, or kind of, how do you say, This is a really down-to-earth thing, crossing the legs. And what he said before is a kind of very metaphysical thing. So I'm not quite sure if it is such a good idea to connect these two at this point, but be that as it may. And when we take this posture, it symbolizes this truth. When I have the left foot on the right side of my body and the right foot on the left side of my body, I do not know which is which. Also here I'm not so quite sure. Like if my left foot goes numb or if my right foot goes numb, usually I can tell the difference. So I'm not quite sure if we should tell this literally. But I think the point that he's trying to get at here is, well, left side and right side, they are connected. You connect them like this. So either maybe the left or the right side. The most important thing in taking the Zazen posture is to keep your spine straight. Your ears and your shoulders should be in one line. So here I think he talks about when you see it from the side. The ears should be above the shoulders. Relax your shoulders and push towards the ceiling with the back of your head. And you should pull your chin in. When your chin is tilted up, you have no strength in your posture. So that would be sitting like this. And that sometimes happens to people, maybe not as extreme like this, but there's quite a lot of people that meditate like this. And he says, when your chin is tilted up, you have no strength in your posture. You are probably dreaming. Also, to gain strength in your posture, press your diaphragm down towards your hara, that's the belly, or lower abdomen. This will help you maintain your physical and mental balance. When you try to keep this posture, at first you may find some difficulty breathing naturally, but when you get accustomed to it, you will be able to breathe naturally and deeply. Maybe first up to here. The most important thing in taking the posture is to keep your spine straight. You should pull your chin in. And I think later he also talks about kind of supporting the sky, pushing it upwards. And those are expressions that in a similar way you can also find in the instructions by Sawaki Roshi. And a lot of other people say that it's important to keep the spine straight. You should stretch it. Sometimes people say you should sit with the intention to break through the ceiling, push your head up, and that helps to pull the chin in. And of course, that's not wrong if you have the habit of sitting like this. Maybe you sit most of the day at the computer or on the sofa. It might be a good idea become aware of your posture and in the beginning make a conscious effort to stretch the spine. But when I explain Zazen, usually what I say, rather than you stretching the spine, allow your spine to grow like a leaf of grass that is growing naturally towards the sky. You don't have to push that grass. You don't have to pull the grass towards the sky. The grass wants to grow high up and you allow it. And it's the same with the spine. You should feel this kind of impulse of the spine to grow and just allow it to happen. The problem with this stretching the spine attitude is maybe in the beginning you feel, oh, feels much better if I stretch my spine a little bit. And rather than having my chin up like this, I pull it back and maybe put the shoulders back, put the ears back. This feels actually much better. But then you start to ask yourself, maybe I can go just a millimeter higher. And usually you can go a millimeter higher, and maybe another half a millimeter, maybe a quarter of a millimeter. And then um, you sit like this and your posture is tense. So I think it's very important to be aware of the posture, but also to not make it into an exercise, not to try too hard. We were talking about Wu Wei, non-doing already. And it's the same for stretching the spine. When you stretch the spine, it's not Wu Wei anymore. It needs to happen. Your spine needs to grow. You allow your spine to grow. And I think one of you said the last time, or maybe the time before last time, first you have to make it a habit. At that time, we were, I think, talking about doing good. And I was saying you shouldn't do good, but it should happen by itself. And somebody said, and that's of course true, so in order for it to happen by itself, you have to make it a habit. And that's the same for the posture. If your habit is to sit like this, and then also in Zazen you wait for your posture to adjust by itself, you have to wait for a long time. You have to also consciously make a habit out of sitting straight, and then you can make the switch and just stopping to adjust the posture and stopping to try to sit 1 millimeter higher, and rather just allow it and you completely relax. Okay, as I thought, I won't finish with this chapter today. So maybe I stop here for today, unless you have no questions at all. Then I can continue for a little bit more. But if you have questions, let's start the Q&A session now, and I will continue to talk about the posture next time in autumn. How is it? Do you have any questions? Anything you would like to ask or share?
I do have one. Oh, sorry, Andre. Please go on.
I heard somebody speak. Was it Gleb who spoke?
Yeah, it was me, but I saw that Andre raised his hand, and I do not
Ah,
want.
yeah, but you can start, and Andre comes after you.
Okay, thank you. But may I ask a question that isn't quite relevant to the posture?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, because I like to use the opportunity to talk to you directly before you go on your trip. And but this is thoroughly a Buddhist topic. I yesterday had a discussion about eating meat and killing animals, and as far as I know, lay practitioners are allowed to eat meat unless the animal hasn't been killed specifically for
Mm-hmm.
me, for example.
Yes.
And in Japan, there is an interesting service. So maybe somebody knows that deers are a huge problem in Japan because they basically eat all the grass, and government kills or issues opportunities, or I don't know how to say, but government tries to control the deer population by killing some of those animals. And there is a
Mm.
small business that uses those issued permissions for the deers to be killed to actually use those killed animals, those killed deers, for food. And
Mm-hmm.
this idea seems to me, on the first hand, quite interesting because they try to make some life, which essentially the food is, out of death. Because otherwise, if those deers aren't being eaten, they are just being thrown away.
Yes.
Uh, and this kind of seems better than just so it seems to be good, but customers of that service, they can rent a trap for that deer. So for example,
Mm-hmm.
I can pay some Nijuman, and for 1 month I will be owning a trap. And if a deer
Mm-hmm.
comes to that trap, then the meat of that deer will be sent to me in a frozen
mm,
state.
mm, mm,
And I'm thinking, and I'm actually had an argument together with yesterday with my friend. Will it still be Buddhist for me to participate in this service, which is on one hand good, on
mm,
the
mm,
other hand, I'm personally become accountable for killing.
mm,
So,
mm.
what do you think about it, Moho?
I mean, that's for you up to decide. I mean, I don't think in this categories. Is this Buddhist or is it not Buddhist? It's more like, is it okay with me? Am I going to do it? And actually, well, in Antaiji, they receive a lot of deer meat recently. I could imagine that the hunters in the villages around have actually traps on the ground of Antaiji because there are so many deer. And if they catch deer, then they donate it to Antaiji and they use it in the kitchen of Antaiji. Um, and I don't think that the Buddha would have agreed with that. So it's not a Buddhist thing to do. But as you said, I think it's still better than throwing this meat away. Because a lot of people, even in the villages around, for some reason they don't want to eat it because they think it's easier to just buy the meat in the supermarket and it's nice and it's all packed in plastic. And it's a waste if you think about it. It would be nice to live in a world where we don't have to kill animals, but the population of the deer has expanded so much in Japan that there seems to be no other way to, well, kill them. And one reason that it has expanded so much is because there's no more hunters. There haven't been any hunters for a long time. So living in harmony with wildlife probably also requires a certain amount of hunting or introducing wolves that do the hunting for the humans. If you have wolves that kill deers and boars, then maybe humans don't have to do that. But so for me personally, I would say maybe I would do it, but that doesn't mean that it's a Buddhist thing to do.
Thank you very much. I'll pass
Thank
this
you.
over to Andre now, the mic.
Hmm.
Thank you.
Okay, Andre, I think you had a question.
Yeah, this is the most interesting subject for me in Zazen from the beginning, the posture.
Mm-hmm.
And I sometimes I go to a new Zen school and go to introduction into Zazen, and I always learn after so many years something new about the posture. There is so much symbolism and things you can think of in the posture. And sometimes I find myself doing Zazen for this 20 minutes, half an hour,
Yes.
all the time. Another thing comes into my mind. I learned about the posture. Okay, and this and this and this and this.
Mm-hmm.
And also, there is this problem when I sit in the posture, it's very fast that I lose this straight back, or I lose the posture.
Mm-hmm.
So I learned I like watching at the posture is always something to get back to the moment. And I do this, and then I find myself always a little bit correcting it, very, very slow, like really all the time. This happens. And if I try to stop to correct it, I will soon find myself sitting like this. And so
Mm-hmm.
automatically now, it's sometimes automatically I correct. So, but this is like contradictory to Zazen. You should not correct anything. Like a little problem.
Yeah, I think I talked about it already last week, this kind of hotel detective attitude that you always check and you always find something to correct. And of course, it's good to come away from that and just leave the posture to itself. But as I said, first you have to make a habit out of the right posture. So in the beginning, of course, whenever you realize I'm not sitting straight anymore, you should correct that. And maybe it feels like you're always correcting it. But if you don't make it into a habit that your body or you yourself noticed if you're sitting straight or not, then you can't switch into autopilot, so to speak. Usually in meditation world, people suppose that being an autopilot is a bad thing. But actually, I'm one of those who says, actually, autopilot is super good. It's the ideal state as long as you're completely awake. So you're in autopilot. Zazen does Zazen. The dishes do the dishes, but you're completely aware. You're completely with the dishes. You're completely with the posture. But to get into this autopilot mode, you have to make it a habit first. So there's no way around kind of checking the posture at first, correcting the posture. But then, of course, it shouldn't be a kind of neurotic obsession that you always have to play the hotel detective. But in the beginning, maybe you should be pretty precise about the posture.
Thank you. I wasn't aware that this is the hotel detective.
Well, it's also one example of the hotel
Yeah.
detective. Of course,
Yeah,
also
thank you.
in ethics, when you say, oh, this is good, this is bad, or things like that, that's also. But also in Zazen, oh, my thumbs are not straight, oh, my back should be a little bit higher. That's also the hotel detective that's always trying to correct something. Or with the thoughts, that's another example. Oh, I'm thinking I should let go of that thought. And another thought, I let go of that. That's also an example of the shepherd that's always
Yeah.
dealing with
I
the
was
sheep.
always aware of the thoughts. Like when I watch
Mm,
at the thoughts and I like try to correct something or what, then I know, oh, it's the hotel detective. But the hotel
mm.
detective is very clever.
Very
I
clever,
wasn't
yes.
aware that this watching at the posture can be also the hotel detective. This is
Yes,
interesting.
yes,
Thank you.
everything, yeah. Mm. Okay, there's still a lot of things to say about the posture. Also, this initial quote, I wanted to say something about that, kind of the unity of body and mind. And of course, the question is, if body and mind are one, why don't we start with the mind? And if the mind is in the right posture, so to speak, we don't have to worry about the body anymore. Suzuki Roshi seems to say the opposite. Adjust the body, and yet then you don't have to worry about having the right mind. But maybe about that I can talk again in the autumn. Today, do you have anything else you would like to share or ask? Chris, please.
Just to follow, I had something else, but just about Gleb. I think how do you say his is it Gleb or yeah? We were in Antaiji in April, and sometimes they eat the deer meat. And like a year or two ago, I kind of thought that it meant like people living there, they work really hard. They meditate like 1,000 hours a year or a few, I forget how many. It's really hard living there. And I kind of felt like it meant people can accept life and death, and you can see the deer get slaughtered. To me, it's kind of scary, but I thought that was kind of the meaning. But then we went in April, and then the leader Echo was explaining to the guests there, like when someone brought it up, and she took it really serious. Like she's not saying like, yeah, we just eat meat. She's like, no, like this is not we are supposed to be nonviolent, but the meat's here, so we eat it. And but the point is that she took it very serious, and it's not like they think it's something that's just totally okay. I just wanted to share that. Thank you.
Mm, mm, mm. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This is a valuable and interesting input. I appreciate that.
Anything else you would like to ask or share?
Maybe one point about the posture.
Mm-hmm.
It's the experience that for me, often the posture is also an expression of what's going on in my mind. As in,
Yes.
like when there's a lot of mental activity going on, the tension kind of builds like a corset. It kind of holds the body in a particular position. And I noticed that rather than trying to correct it, sometimes it's just useful to notice it. And then after a moment of noticing, oh, there is this tension, I realize where it comes from and it kind of resolves itself.
Yes, yes. That's true, yes. Anything else you would like to share or ask? Last chance before October? If not, I hope to see you again in October, or if you are in Europe, somewhere close to Switzerland or Germany, of course, that would be great if we could sit together there. But otherwise, let's meet again here on Monday in Schwann's Zoom room. October 6th, I think, would be the next time. So thank you, everybody, for coming. Thanks to Schwann for hosting us, and have a nice summer.
Thanks, everyone. Good luck.
Whose T-shirt is the chat about? I didn't see anybody with a special T-shirt. But anyway, thank you, Schwann.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
you.
See you.